This is the first part from the anime. The anime begins with a scene where a group of goblins closes in on a frightened young girl. Just as she believes she is moments away from death, someone appears before her, standing firmly between her and the goblins. The scene then shifts to reveal a man named Raust at the Adventurers Guild. Raust is eager to form a party and start searching for potential teammates. Soon after, a young woman named Naracina approaches Raust and volunteers to join him. Naracina introduces herself as a martial arts expert, while Raust reveals that he is a healer. At that moment, Amherst, a female staff member of the Adventurers Guild, quickly comes over to Naracina and warns her about Raust. Amherst explains that Raust is known as an unreliable adventurer, only able to perform basic healing magic despite having been an adventurer since childhood. She adds that Raust is considered too weak to rely on as a healer, which is why other adventurers and locals rarely include him in their parties. Amherst cautions Naracina that she may regret teaming up with Raust, especially since he is also a poor man with no money. Hearing this, Naracina confidently replies that she has plenty of money and even shows it to Amherst, who quickly urges her to hide it, warning her that most adventurers in town are thugs. Aware that Naracina is a novice adventurer, Amherst offers to introduce her to a more suitable party for beginners. However, Naracina declines and says that she has long wanted to team up with Raust. Naracina then turns to Raust, expressing that she wants to form a team with him alone. They proceed to sign the necessary paperwork and pay the required fees to establish their adventuring team, and then promptly set off on their first mission. Raust suggests they explore the Marmot Labyrinth, despite Amherst's prior advice to take Naracina to the Western Grasslands, an area more suited for beginner adventurers. Raust explains to Naracina that monsters frequently appear around the city of Marmot, with the weakest ones only showing up in the Western Grasslands. However, as the grasslands are vast and they might not encounter any monsters, Raust decides to take Naracina directly into the labyrinth. Inside the labyrinth, Naracina showcases her combat skills by defeating a group of goblins. During this encounter, they collect magical stones to later sell to the Adventurers Guild for some extra income. As they venture deeper into the labyrinth, Naracina nearly stumbles into a trap. Fortunately, Raust notices it just in time and prevents her from stepping onto a deadly, trapped floor. Naracina wonders how Raust could detect the trap, but he simply replies that he is experienced enough as an adventurer to handle labyrinth situations like these. Soon after, they confront a much stronger monster than the goblins. Naracina initiates the attack, approaching the monster at close range, but she soon becomes overwhelmed as the monster forces her against a wall. Unable to dodge in time, Naracina believes the monster is about to kill her. But fortunately, Raust arrives just in time to save her, killing the monster with a single strike. Seeing this, Naracina is taken aback and wonders if Raust is truly just a healer since he managed to defeat such a powerful creature. In response, Raust simply explains that he has been an adventurer for a long time and has mastered a few close combat techniques to defend himself. Noticing Naracina's injured arm, Raust uses his healing abilities to tend to her wound. After an eventful hunt in the labyrinth, Raust and Naracina return to the Adventurers Guild to sell the magic stones they've gathered. During this time, Amherst is visibly surprised at the amount of magic stones they managed to collect, especially considering they only spent half a day in the labyrinth. Spotting some stones from a semi-monster, Amherst scolds Raust, suspecting that he took Naracina to the dangerous middle levels of the labyrinth, which are too risky for beginner adventurers. However, Raust clarifies that the semi-monster was found on the upper level, where such creatures are rarely seen. Upon hearing this, Amherst assumes something unusual might be happening within the labyrinth, but such information is known only to the guild's higher officials. Amherst then hands him a bag of money from the sale of the magic stones, and Raust is stunned, as he has never earned this much before. While working for the Sword of Lightning party, Raust was given only small pay. Amherst speculates that Raust may have been cheated by his former party members, and Naracina suggests that he report this to the Adventurers Guild. However, Raust declines, as he wishes to leave everything about his former party behind, especially now that he has formed a new party with Naracina. Not long after Raust and Naracina leave, Amherst is approached by her superior, Hansam, who inquires about Lost. At that moment, Hansam assumes that Amherst had helped Lost find a teammate, but Amherst clarifies that it was Naracina who insisted on teaming up with Lost. At the same time, Lost and Naracina head to an inn for dinner and a place to stay the night. In the quiet of her room, Naracina recalls memories from her past, revealing that she was the young girl seen at the start of the story, and Lost was the man who saved her. Back then, Lost had killed the goblins and tended to her wounded arm. Deeply impressed by Lost, Naracina decided that when she grew up, she would become an adventurer and form a team with him so she could protect him in return. From that moment on, Naracina dedicated herself to training her body and mastering martial arts. Upon hearing that Lost had been cast out of the Sword of Lightning party, she decided to seek him out in the city of Marmot and offer to be his partner. Though she tries to stay optimistic, Naracina still feels a bit saddened that Lost doesn't seem to remember her. It's understandable, as Naracina has grown taller and her hair color has changed. Still, she wonders why the townspeople call Lost a loser, despite his impressive skills. The scene then shifts to a flashback of Lost when he was still part of the Sword of Lightning party. At that time, they faced a fierce, three-headed Hydra, both powerful and highly venomous. During the battle, Lost is seen healing a party member named Siberia who has been poisoned by the monster, while the others strategize on how to defeat it. The party leader, Margulis, orders his teammate, Armia, to attack the Hydra with her magic. However, Armia, paralyzed by fear, is unable to cast her spell. Frustrated, Margulis lashes out, angry that none of his party members can be relied upon. He then decides to abandon them, leaving his team behind while Lost struggles to carry the injured Siberia. Luckily, the monster lets them escape, allowing everyone to survive. Following this incident, Margulis decides to expel Lost from the party, and Siberia blames him for their failure to defeat the Hydra. Not only that, Siberia also questions Armia about who should be held accountable for their failure. And, reluctantly, she points to Lost, fearing she would be removed from the party herself. In the present, Lost wakes up, haunted by the memory of Margulis casting him out. He recalls how his former party members often used him as bait to distract hordes of demonic creatures. Growing up as an orphan from the labyrinth, Lost was used to being treated as expendable and humiliated. But over time, the weight of that suffering became too much to bear, leading him to leave the party. On his way out of the labyrinth, Lost stumbled upon a band of goblins attacking a carriage and attempting to kill a young girl, who was none other than Naracina. Without a second thought, Lost rushed to save Naracina, fighting with all his might to fend off the goblin horde, even though he was not a skilled fighter. Soon after, Lost was struck from behind and lost consciousness. When he opened his eyes, he saw Naracina sitting beside him as the knights finally defeated the goblins. In that moment, Lost realized he was of little use, as it was the knights, not him, who saved the young girl. Yet, Naracina thanked him, appreciating his fierce effort in holding off the goblins long enough for the knights to rescue them. She even called Lost a cool guy, though her expression turned annoyance when she learned he had been used as bait. Moved by the incident, Naracina promised that once she grew up, she would become an adventurer and form a team with Lost to protect him. Lost was touched by her words, although he doubted that this noble girl would actually become an adventurer one day. Nevertheless, meeting her reignited his courage and self-confidence, pushing him to continue his journey as an adventurer. Lost then trained diligently, studying magic under a master, practicing swordsmanship, and honing various skills to strengthen his knowledge and abilities. Eventually, Lost joined the Sword of Lightning party, but they abruptly expelled him. In the present, Lost feels grateful that he met that young girl and continued his life as an adventurer, for it led him to reunite with Naracina. The following day, Lost and Naracina venture deeper into the labyrinth and discover a pentagram commonly used as a teleportation portal. Although teleportation portals are convenient, Lost explains that teleportation magic disappeared hundreds of years ago, and no one today has the skill to create new portals. Despite this, they decide to use the ancient portal to reach the labyrinth center. Upon arrival, they are confronted by demonic monsters without physical bodies, made entirely of spirits. Since these demons cannot be harmed physically, Raust suggests they flee. However, Neresina assures him that she can defeat the monsters, and Raust, trusting her judgment, agrees to follow her plan. Raust then lured the monster, drawing it closer while Neresina prepared to strike with her fist, charged with inner energy known as prana. Using this power, Neresina delivered a physical blow that easily destroyed the demonic creature. After the battle, Raust noticed Neresina was injured, so he healed her using a magical tool that enhanced the healing effect. Soon after, they returned to town to sell their collected magic stones to Amherst, who seemed pleased, knowing she'd earn a commission from the sale as well. That evening, as they strolled through the market, they overheard a commotion caused by bickering adventurers. Such arguments had become more frequent lately, as many adventurers from other towns, mostly troublemakers, had recently arrived, often causing disturbances. While having dinner, Neresina asked about a tall tower visible from everywhere in town. The tower was strange, with no doors or windows and no carvings on its surface. Raust replied that he didn't know much about the tower either. When he asked the townspeople, they explained that the construction workers were simply following a sketch provided by a mysterious agent. Believing the tower posed no threat, they completed its construction. Raust thought it would have been wiser to build walls or a trench around the city for protection against attacks rather than an odd, seemingly purposeless tower. Back in their room, Neresina considered telling Raust something, but decided against it. She had been hoping to share a room with him, while Raust felt happy to have a companion who was not only kind and loyal, but also showed genuine respect for him. At the same time, Raust wondered if he would ever meet the young girl he had once saved, not realizing that she was, in fact, Neresina. Meanwhile, Margulis introduced his party members to their new healer, Lyra, as they prepared to face the Hydra. Margulis planned to attack the monster head-on, with Lyra assisting him. However, Lyra expressed concern, reminding him that as a healer, she wasn't suited for frontline combat. Margulis countered that their former healer, Raust, often helped him fight on the front lines, as he had mastered some close-range attack techniques. Siberia added that Raust even managed to slice off one of the Hydra's heads during their last encounter. Hearing this, Lyra was shocked to learn that a healer like Raust could accomplish such a feat. The following day, when Raust and Neresina visited the Adventurers Guild, Amherst suggested they consider adding more members to their team, enabling them to challenge stronger monsters and collect more valuable magic stones for higher earnings. Additionally, Amherst recommended they rent a house instead of staying at inns, as doing so would save them money in the long run. She added with a smile that in parties with both men and women, it's not uncommon for feelings to develop, making a shared house a practical choice for them. Upon hearing that, Neresina's face turned red with embarrassment, imagining herself and Raust as a couple. On the other hand, Raust quickly changed the subject, mentioning that the Sword of Lightning party had also rented a house, but he was made to sleep in a storage shed filled with clutter. Meanwhile, the Sword of Lightning party seemed to have failed yet again in their attempt to defeat the Hydra. This time, they sustained even more injuries than they had when Raust was with them. Lyra, however, openly blamed Margulis, calling him an adventurer with average skills but overwhelming arrogance. Margulis and Siberia, on the other hand, finally realized that Raust had actually been quite useful to them, especially since he never complained and always followed their orders. Not only that, Raust hadn't even realized they were underpaying him. As a result, Margulis decided to bring Raust back to the party, feeling confident that he would agree to return. The next morning, Armia and Lyra, just waking up, found that Margulis and Siberia had already left. They had gone to the Adventurers Guild to recruit Raust. Arrogantly, Margulis attempted to persuade Raust to rejoin their party, promising an equal share of the profits. He claimed that their current healer, Lyra, was useless, so they needed Raust to return. Raust thanked Margulis for the invitation, but declined, explaining that he had formed his own party and now had a new partner. Upon hearing this, Margulis quickly realized that Neresina was Raust's new partner and accused her of manipulating Raust for her own gain. He even accused Amherst of conspiring with Neresina to deceive Raust. However, Raust defended Neresina in front of everyone, declaring that he would not hesitate to retaliate against anyone who dared to harm her. He then led Naracina away, leaving Margulis and the onlookers stunned by his bold stance. Soon after, Margulis announced he was looking for a strong fighter to help him defeat the Hydra. To his surprise, a man named Sieg stepped forward, volunteering to join the party. Margulis, however, dismissed Sieg and challenged him to a one-on-one duel. Unexpectedly, Sieg easily defeated Margulis, disarming him before the fight even began by knocking the sword from his hand. Witnessing this, the crowd began to murmur, labeling Margulis as an arrogant man who saw himself as powerful but was, in reality, merely average. Margulis immediately felt humiliated, but he claimed he had intentionally held back to save face. Despite this, he decided to recruit Sieg, though Siberia remained suspicious of Sieg, who wore a mask to hide his face. Margulis assured Siberia that they needed to defeat the Hydras soon, as their party, the Sword of Lightning, had seen its reputation plummet after repeated failures. Meanwhile, Armia and Lyra approached Raust to ask for his help. They informed Raust that Margulis had recruited a new adventurer, driven by his ambition to defeat the Hydra. Lyra added that Margulis had been reckless, almost endangering Armia's life, and she feared he might repeat the same mistake. Armia explained that the Hydra was still recovering from the wound Raust had inflicted on its head, but there was no guarantee they could defeat it. As a result, she pleaded with Raust to help them take down the Hydra, essentially asking him to rejoin the Sword of Lightning, as she feared they would all be killed otherwise. Upon hearing this, Naracina was annoyed, frustrated that Armia still cared about Margulis despite his disregard for his teammates' safety. Naracina questioned Armia's behavior toward Raust when he was part of their team, but Armia explained that she had only acted that way out of fear of being cast out of the party. Although Margulis was arrogant, selfish, and annoying, Armia considered him her companion and didn't want him or the other party members to be hurt or, worst of all, lose their lives. With tears streaming down her face, Armia apologized to Raust, admitting that as a novice adventurer, she was terrified of being abandoned by her party members. Lyra, trying to support Armia, told Raust that Armia had even called out his name in her sleep, repeatedly asking for forgiveness. Hearing this, Raust extended his hand to Armia, telling her he had already forgiven her. He added that he didn't hold any grudge against Margulis or the others, though he had no intention of returning to the Sword of Lightning party. Disheartened by Raust's refusal, Armia appeared saddened but understood that she couldn't force him to help. Later, while they ate, Raust suggested to Lyra that she should leave the party if she wished to avoid enduring Margulis's mistreatment. However, Lyra admitted that she wasn't overly concerned about the mistreatment she endured. Rather, she was more worried about Armia and didn't want to leave her alone with Margulis and his party. The next day, Margulis introduced Sieg to the party, and judging by her expression, Lyra seemed to recognize him. When they were alone, Lyra attempted to confront Sieg and confirmed his disguise upon noticing his sword. She then asked why Sieg had come to town in disguise, but Sieg refused to answer. Still, he expressed gratitude that Lyra chose to keep his identity a secret from Margulis and the others. Meanwhile, Raust and Naracina headed toward the labyrinth entrance, though along the way, Raust glanced toward the swampy area where the Hydra resided, feeling a twinge of concern for Armia and the others. Inside the labyrinth, Raust and Naracina defeated hordes of demonic monsters, collecting numerous magic stones. Suddenly, Naracina felt hungry, so they took a break to eat. It turned out the innkeeper had packed a variety of delicious dishes for them, using leftovers from Armia. During their meal, Raust explained more about the Hydra, a vicious creature with deadly poison. The monster's muscles are extremely strong, and its scales are nearly impenetrable, making it an incredibly challenging opponent. Physical and magical attacks alike are often deflected. Although the Hydra's poison is lethal, a special antidote is available for purchase, though it's quite costly. Consequently, adventurers typically rely on a healer's poison-neutralizing magic, though it works rather slowly. Upon hearing this, Naracina appeared worried, but Raust reassured her that the Sword of Lightning was actually a skilled party. Despite his poor behavior, Margulis possessed impressive swordsmanship, and Siberia was known for her speed and agility. Naracina, annoyed, remarked that Lost was overestimating them, but Lost replied that he was simply being honest. Soon after, Naracina, expressing boredom with the labyrinth, suggested they venture to the swamps where the Hydra lived. Meanwhile, Margulis and his party took turns attacking the Hydra, attempting to weaken the monster's defenses. When it was Sieg's turn to attack, he suddenly held back, choosing to step back. As a result, Margulis immediately questioned his actions, but Sieg replied that he wanted to let Margulis kill the monster, as he was surely eager to earn the title of Hydra Slayer. Meanwhile, Siberia prepared to distract the monster, while Margulis launched an attack. Armia, on the other hand, attempted to weaken the monster's defenses using her magic, but the creature noticed her and struck Armia, knocking her down. Soon after, black smoke began to seep from her body as the monster approached her. Sieg explained that this black smoke was the manifestation of human fear, drawn out by the monster and converted into its own power. Normally, this wouldn't be visible, but due to the mana or magical energy emanating from the swamp beneath them, they could see it. The Hydra then mutated into a fiercer, much more powerful version of itself. With this mutation, the Hydra gained additional heads, and its scales became even harder and more impenetrable. Realizing the threat, Sieg urged Margulis to retreat, but Margulis refused, determined to press on with his attack. He attempted to strike one of the Hydra's heads, but his sword shattered upon impact. Distracted, Margulis failed to notice the Hydra preparing a deadly strike against him. Fortunately, Lost arrived just in time to save his life. Lost and Naracina then attempted to engage the Hydra, but Sieg advised them to fall back and assist Armia. Lost quickly checked her condition and used an overlapping healing technique to treat her. Lyra was astonished, having never heard of or seen this technique before. Soon after, Armia regained consciousness, and Lost apologized for being late. Armia didn't hold it against him and thanked Lost before drifting back to sleep. Meanwhile, Sieg informed Lost that the Hydra had singled him out, challenging him directly. Sieg instructed Margulis and the others to fall back while he and Naracina would aid Lost in facing the monster. Through coordinated teamwork, they managed to corner the Hydra, with Sieg successfully severing one of its heads with his sword. Impressed, Margulis observed Sieg's prowess, while Lyra explained that Sieg's weapon was a legendary magic sword imbued with terrifying power. During the battle, Naracina accidentally let her guard down, allowing the Hydra to strike her and knock her unconscious. At the same time, Sieg prepared to launch a counterattack, but Lost stopped him, realizing that the Hydra had taken Naracina hostage, forcing him to face the monster alone. It became clear that the Hydra had not only mutated to become physically stronger, but also displayed an intelligence beyond that of typical monsters. Lost readied himself for an attack, but after a short while, the Hydra knocked him down, leaving him defenseless. Lost struggled to reach his sword, trying to rise, but he ultimately lost consciousness. Soon after, Lost suddenly stood back up, his body now surrounded by mana, with a horn emerging from his forehead, transforming him into a form far different from before. With this extraordinary strength, Lost was able to slay the Hydra effortlessly. However, after defeating the monster, Lost suddenly collapsed. Shortly afterward, Lost awoke to find Naracina by his side, fully recovered thanks to the antidote Lyra had administered. At that moment, Lyra wanted to question Lost about his incredible power, but Sieg quickly stopped her from doing so. Meanwhile, Margulis seemed pleased with their success in defeating the Hydra and planned to split the profits from selling the magic stones only between Siberia and Lost, as he felt the others hadn't contributed at all to the battle. Siberia went as far as to call Armia a useless mage, and Margulis even hinted at selling Armia due to her attractive appearance. Upon hearing this, Lost was immediately filled with anger, but Naracina swiftly struck Margulis out of frustration. Margulis then threatened to report Naracina to the Adventurers Guild for attacking him, but Sieg and Lyra refused to testify against her. Sieg warned that he would instead report Margulis for planning to sell Armia, as human trafficking is a serious crime. Sieg then revealed his true identity as an adventurer from the royal capital and currently the guild advisor assigned to investigate the worsening security situation in Marmot. It turned out that many adventurers had been violating rules and causing disorder, leading to the mistreatment of honest adventurers like Raust. After confirming several rule violations and acts of deceit, Sieg arrested Margulis and Siberia, intending to bring them to justice for their wrongdoings. Amherst mentioned that the lightest punishment they could face would be a lifetime of forced labor. Worse, their names would be permanently erased from the Adventurers Guild, barring them from ever becoming adventurers again. Hearing this, Raust pleaded with Sieg to show mercy to Margulis and Siberia, granting them one more chance to redeem themselves, especially since they hadn't committed severe crimes like human trafficking or murder. After some consideration, Sieg agreed to release Margulis and Siberia, though he sternly forbade them from returning to Marmot, warning them that any further offenses would lead to an immediate death sentence. Shortly after, Sieg announced his plans to stay in Marmot temporarily and form a team with Lyra and Armia. He had been tasked with keeping an eye on certain suspicious adventurers, and now, having witnessed Raust's extraordinary power when he defeated the Hydra single-handedly, Sieg was especially interested in monitoring him. This is the end from the first part of the anime. Moral lesson from the story: being a healer with weak healing skills is like being a chef who can't cook. It keeps people guessing if you're the real deal or just good at trying. And remember, sometimes it's not about how good you are, it's about how much you can keep others on their toes.